with Abraham in Ur. Sarah, originally named Sarai, was the faithful wife of Abraham. They lived in the great city of Ur of the Chaldeans. One day, God called Abraham to leave his homeland and travel to a new land that he would show them. Even though the journey was long and uncertain, Sarah trusted God and followed Abraham in faith. Together they left behind their comfortable life and began a journey that would change history forever. Through Sarah and Abraham, God would fulfill his promise and bless many nations. Journey to Canaan. After God called Abraham, he obeyed and left his homeland. Sarah went with him on the long journey to the land of Canaan. They traveled through Haran with their family, servants, and animals, trusting God to guide them every step of the way. The road was difficult and filled with uncertainty, but Sarah remained beside Abraham in faith. God had promised to give them a new land and make Abraham the father of a great nation. Their journey to Canaan became the beginning of God's covenant and a powerful example of obedience and trust in him. In Egypt with Pharaoh. Because of a great famine, Abraham and Sarah went down to Egypt. Abraham feared the Egyptians would kill him because Sarah was very beautiful. So he told her to say she was his sister. Pharaoh heard about Sarah and brought her into his palace. He treated Abraham kindly because of her. But God sent plagues on Pharaoh's house because Sarah was Abraham's wife. Pharaoh realized the truth, returned Sarah to Abraham, and told them to leave Egypt immediately. Plagues on Pharaoh's house. God sent serious plagues upon Pharaoh's house because Sarah was Abraham's wife. Pharaoh realized that Abraham had hidden the truth from him. Fearing God's judgment, Pharaoh returned Sarah safely to Abraham and ordered them to leave Egypt immediately. Through this event, God protected Sarah and showed his power over Pharaoh and all Egypt. The promise of a child and Hagar. God had promised Abraham and Sarah that they would have many descendants. But Sarah remained without a child for many years. As she grew older, Sarah became discouraged and gave her servant Hagar to Abraham so they could have a child through her. Hagar conceived and later gave birth to Ishmael. But tension and sorrow entered the family, and Sarah struggled with doubt and impatience. Even through their weakness, God continued to remain faithful to his promise and his plan for Abraham and Sarah's future son. Hagar flees and God's angel. After Hagar became pregnant, tension grew between her and Sarah. Sarah treated Hagar harshly, and Hagar ran away into the wilderness. Alone and afraid in the desert, Hagar sat near a spring of water. There, the angel of the Lord appeared to her and told her to return. God promised that her son Ishmael would become the father of a great nation. Hagar realized that God had seen her suffering and cared for her even in the wilderness. The name change and covenant. When Abraham was 99 years old, God appeared to him and made a covenant with him. God changed Abram's name to Abraham, meaning father of many nations. He also changed Sarai's name to Sarah, meaning princess. God promised that Sarah would have a son within a year and that nations and kings would come through her family line. This covenant showed that God's promises were certain and that he had a special plan for Abraham and Sarah. Sarah laughs in disbelief. One day, 3 visitors came to Abraham's tent. They told Abraham that within a year Sarah would have a son. Sarah was listening from inside the tent, and when she heard this, she laughed to herself because she was very old. Then the Lord asked, "Why did Sarah laugh? Is anything too hard for the Lord?" Sarah became afraid and denied laughing, but the Lord knew her heart. Through this moment, God reminded Sarah that nothing is impossible for him. In Gerar with Abimelech. Later, Abraham and Sarah traveled to the land of Gerar. Once again, Abraham said that Sarah was his sister because he feared for his safety. King Abimelech took Sarah into his house, not knowing that she was Abraham's wife. But God appeared to Abimelech in a dream and warned him. Abimelech quickly returned Sarah to Abraham and gave him gifts as a sign of peace. Abraham prayed for Abimelech and his household, and God healed them. Through this event, God continued to protect Sarah and his covenant promise. Birth of Isaac. Just as God had promised, Sarah gave birth to a son in her old age. Abraham was 100 years old when Isaac was born, and Sarah was 90. Their hearts were filled with joy because God had fulfilled his promise. Sarah said, "God has made me laugh, and everyone who hears will laugh with me." The child was named Isaac, which means laughter. Through Isaac's birth, God showed that nothing is impossible and that his promises always come true. The mighty army, a great army, stood together on the battlefield, strong and fearless beneath the burning sky. Their commander led them with courage, holding his sword high as banners waved in the wind. Every soldier was prepared for battle, ready to defend their people and their land. Though armies may trust in weapons and strength, true victory comes from God. Courage, unity, and faith gave them strength as they marched forward together. Death and burial of Sarah. Sarah lived to be 127 years old. She died in the land of Canaan, and Abraham mourned deeply for her. Filled with sorrow, he wept for the woman who had journeyed with him through many years of faith, trials, and God's promises. Abraham bought the cave of Machpelah from Ephron the Hittite as a burial place for Sarah. She was laid to rest there with honor and love. The cave later became the family burial place for Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Rebekah, and Leah. Sarah's life was remembered as a story of faith, endurance, and God's faithfulness.